You know how the devil is in the details? Lá is such a tiny word in Portuguese, but which can have a massive impact on your journey to fluency, that I decided to make yet another video about it. Olá, eu sou Catarina. I'm a Portuguese polyglot, and here at the Language Unschool, I help you find your voice in European Portuguese. We're going to start with the most obvious use of the word lá, and then we'll move on to more complex uses of the word. Now, please don't criticize my choice of sources of books from which I took these examples. The first one is from As Gêmeas de Santa Clara Voltam ao Colégio. So not a book originally wrote in Portuguese, but we're just going to trust the translator did a good job. Now, assuming you know that the word lá means there, that's like the first meaning you're probably going to come across, one issue will arise, which is where to put it. And this is not a black and white question, as in the grammar books tell you you have to put it before or after the verb or whatever. It's more about exposure to the language, so consuming a lot of content. Reading would make more sense because then you can actually see the word and stop and notice to really have a feel for where you would place the word. My English native speaker unschoolers will normally place it at the end of a sentence, simply because in English you will say, I'll meet you there. He was there. We've never been there. But in Portuguese, as you will see with the examples, from one page alone of this book, it's not so common for us to place it at the end of a sentence. Now, let's have a look. I found the word lá 5 times in one page alone of this book. So let's look at where it is placed, and then we can do a bit of probability, okay? So the first example, está bem, não fazemos lá. This one, it does come at the end, and there wouldn't really be any other option. Second example, ninguém lá vai à noite. Here there is flexibility. We could have said ninguém vai lá à noite, but it just sounds more natural to put it before the vai, whereas in English you would have had no one goes there at night. Third example, nunca irão descobrir que lá estamos. Lá could have been placed at the end, but again, it sounds more natural to place it before, whereas in English you would have had it at the end. No one would have guessed we were there. Fourth example, estive lá a ensaiar na semana passada. Again, the lá does not come the same place as it would have in English. I had been rehearsing there last week. Now, the fifth and last example from this book is interesting, and it's a bit different from the other ones. Podemos levar daqueles fogões a petróleo que estão no armário lá de baixo. So here in English, you wouldn't even need lá, but in Portuguese, it's very common we add the lá. And the lá, of course, here it brings distance because you're here, the cupboard is downstairs. So it's over there downstairs. Doesn't make sense in English. It's just how we express it. It's more idiomatic. You may have heard the expression lá fora or lá dentro, depending where you are, right? If you're outside, you would say lá dentro. If you're inside, you would say lá fora. As I said in the beginning, do not judge me for my reading choices. They're not really for me, okay? But this book, Sei Lá, is, to give you an idea, is like the Portuguese equivalent of the Sex and the City. So very empty in terms of content, far from being philosophical read, but it does contain very useful language, starting with the title, which in a way doesn't say anything. Okay, sei lá, so say, maybe you know it means from the verb saber, I know, and then lá is not referring to there. It is referring to nothing. It's just a way we have to say, I don't know. So this is an amazing use, I find, of the word lá. Basically what it's doing is negating the verb. And this, as far as I've noticed, only happens with the verb saber. There is a slight connotation of, I don't know and I don't care, or how would I know? Almost like when you shrug your shoulders like, I don't know, sei lá. So pay attention to intonation if you hear people say it. So this obviously you wouldn't have in written text. So the first example I have from, well, the second, since the first was the title, the second example I have from the book itself is Por isso é que pedi ao Gonçalo para lá ir fazer figura de estúpido. Okay, interesting example, but let's focus on the lá. So here, para lá ir fazer. Again, it means there, but notice where it is placed. In English, it would have been to go there. So it would have been after the verb, whereas we put it before. And it just sounds a lot more natural in Portuguese. The next three examples have to do with lá being used after the imperative. It's precisely the usage I talked about in this video. So, chame lá o seu amigo. Chame, it's imperative formal. In very short terms, imperative is used in Portuguese to place an order, but adding the lá makes it softer. You're sort of like transforming an order into a suggestion. And considering the imperative chame is formal, right? In formal situations, you wouldn't be telling someone, bossing someone around unless you're maybe the police. So first you make a request, and we do this in Portuguese by adding lá. It could have been cá as well, but the start of the video is lá, not cá. Another similar example, então diga lá como é que eu me chamo. Same idea, diga is formal for dizer, and lá does not translate into there, it's just making it more of a suggestion. And the third one that is very similar is então vamos lá. So vamos, let's go. And the lá is almost like the English let's, because the let's makes it friendly. If you could simply just say go, but that wouldn't sound very friendly, would it? Great, a few more examples with yet another use of the word lá. Aquilo ia dar asneira e lá ficava eu sem boleia. So the lá here is not used after an imperative. It is not used after the verb saber to mean I don't know. It is not used as a place preposition meaning there. What is it then? This usage is very idiomatic and it gives a slight tone of resignation. And there's not much you can do about it. Almost like the sei lá. Lá me contou umas histórias. This example, you don't really have the big picture because I'm just giving you part of the sentence and not, the whole story where it is set. But basically, there is a sense, again, of I can't do much about it, resignation. And there, he told me a few stories and I'm like, I couldn't care. Again, see the body language of mine, shrugging shoulders. It's the same idea of sei lá, too, isn't it? Okay, last example. Já lá vão 6 meses. This one is similar to the previous ones in which feels like time passed by. It's been 6 months already and you had no control over it. It's almost like, yeah, it went by fast and that's it. I'm resigned. What can I do? I cannot control time, right? So you see how subtle these things are. I would love to know in the comments if you had noticed all of these uses of the word lá. As I always say, if you read or listen with focus and notice these little things, it will bring your Portuguese to another level. If you need content ideas on how to immerse yourself in the language, both in terms of listening content or stuff to read, have a look at my free Mini-Tuga in the description. And you can also check out this video in which I talk about some books from very simple stories to more complex ones that you can start immersing yourself in and improve your Portuguese. And remember, you don't have to show off saying, I read a whole book in Portuguese. It can start as a page a week. It doesn't matter. In the beginning, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. So I hope you have enjoyed. Até a próxima.